Good evening, Chicago. I hope you all had a wonderful Christmas holiday. If you celebrate Christmas or time with your families and loved ones this past weekend, I'm Jerry Vasilatos, your host tonight for another Tuesday night edition of Chicago Corner. And I am joined by my colleague, Kit Cabello. Hello, Kit.
Hello, everyone. It's so good to see all of you. Really glad that we are building up. Oh, there we go.
Sorry about
All
that.
right.
Too many graphics here.
Anyway, it's all good because that was a nice view of our studio with Christmas editions. But nonetheless, I hope everyone had a wonderful and happy Christmas Eve and Christmas Day with your friends, family, and loved ones, and a happy Boxing Day as well. We're entering into the new year of 2022 very soon. 2021 will be behind us. And for many of us, we could say good riddance, and we got a great show. So, Jerry, you are the captain, not me anymore. So, take it away, my friend.
Well, as I said before the show started, I feel like Thanos has returned because as I was looking at the news cycle tonight of what we could talk about, the big C word is back in the news again. So,
Yes.
yeah,
And we got to be very careful with YouTube,
Yeah,
especially with how
exactly.
we word everything out. So, bear with us, folks.
Yeah, and it's not the C word that you normally think people are saying. It's the C word related to the pandemic. So let me bring up our first story because obviously a lot of people got together from Thanksgiving through the holidays, and I think that we are now seeing the results of people not taking safety precautions more seriously. This comes to us from Block Club Chicago and Colin Boyle. 2 states added back to Chicago's travel advisory as COVID-19 surges nationally. Another 50 Chicagoans were reported killed by the virus in the past 24 hours, and the city's positivity rate has risen to 15.4%. This is quite alarming, as everybody thought that things were under control and going away, and doesn't seem so much. 2 states and another territory have been added back to Chicago's travel advisory, meaning just 2 places are not on the list as C-19 surges across the United States. Louisiana, South Carolina, and the Virgin Islands were added to the travel advisory, according to a mayor's office news release. There are now 48 states and 3 territories on the list. The only places not on the list are Montana and Guam. Unvaccinated travelers from places on the list should get a C-19 test 1 to 3 days before their trip and 3 to 5 days after arriving in Chicago, according to the health advisory. Unvaccinated people are also asked to quarantine for at least 7 days upon arrival in the city. Even if they get a negative test, those who don't get tested are asked to quarantine for 10 days. The quarantine and test rules do not apply for travelers who are fully vaccinated. All people must wear masks on public transportation. This is nothing new. I mean, that at least has been, that policy's been continued even if people haven't been paying attention to it, including planes, buses, and trains, and people must wear masks indoors in public in Chicago. Now, we're going to have another story related to that with restaurants in a moment. Travelers are also asked to avoid crowds as much as possible and wash their hands or use sanitizer. And can I advise everybody, the best way to wash your hands, really, if you want to train yourself, the best way to wash your hands safely and properly is imagine that you just shook hands with Ted Cruz.
Ugh.
Unvaccinated people who traveled should avoid being around people at increased risk for severe illness, like older people and immunocompromised people, for at least 14 days, regardless of their test results, according to the health department. All travelers are asked to watch themselves for symptoms of COVID-19 and to isolate and get tested if they have symptoms. So we just went through the list in the report of the travel advisory areas. Now, as we know, or at least as we've heard, and I'm no doctor, but Omicron, I guess, is not as deadly, but it's easier to catch this variant. And the concern is that there have also been a lot of breakout cases. I believe Bobby Rush just reported that he is vaccinated and he caught COVID. So, the concern here is that great if you're vaccinated, great if you've been boosted, but if you catch Omicron or one of these breakthrough variants, you could easily get someone else sick who might not be vaccinated, or get somebody sick who is vaccinated, who's a senior and at more risk because of comorbidities that they may suffer from. Dr. Allison Arwadi, head of the Chicago Department of Public Health, has previously urged Chicagoans who aren't fully vaccinated not to travel as they could be at risk. So, what are the stats? In Illinois, about 7.6 million people, or 60.35% of the state's 12.7 million people, are fully vaccinated against COVID-19, according to the state data. 60.35%. Across the state, 48,152 vaccine doses are being administered per day based on a 7-day rolling average. Illinois and Chicago have administered at least 19,034,693 vaccine doses of the 21,100 and wait, am I getting my 21,183,435 provided to them. City data also shows more than 1.7 million Chicagoans, or 64.1% of all residents, are fully vaccinated, and 71.1% of all Chicagoans have gotten at least one shot. Everyone 5 and older is eligible to get vaccinated in Chicago. COVID-19 vaccinations are free, do not require insurance. Anyone can call the city's coronavirus hotline at, I should have put that in the banner, but here it is at the bottom here. Call that hotline at 312-746-4835 to get more information on how and where to get vaccinated in their community. Where is that phone number?
Wow.
All right, here, yeah. So it's shit is getting real again, as we like to say. Those numbers are pretty crazy. Here's the phone number here. Let me highlight it on the screen. Yeah, your thoughts, Kit?
Well, we kind of saw this coming. This pandemic isn't even over yet. And all this rush about returning back to normal, especially when Trump was kicked out of office, let's be very clear here. This is still going to be an ongoing uphill fight that we're going to be dealing with. And because of, again, we have elected officials that are more worried about the economy because they want people to be going back to work, they're not caring about people's safety. Now, whatever your position is on the vaccine, whether you want to get it or not, the point is we have political leaders that once again led us into this disaster, all the while more than happy to keep earning profits, bailing out the top 1%. And here in the city of Chicago, again, where was the real responsibility for Mayor Lori Lightfoot, for example? For example, she was saying, "Oh, we have to do everything we can to be against, to make sure that the vaccine's going to work and everyone's, stay at home." She's more than happy to have something like Lollapalooza happen, and again, a huge spreader event. So we're here again, and it's just going to get worse until we actually have a real plan. And sadly, there's no one at the city level, state level, that really has a real initiative to help out the small business owners and the working class citizens in Chicago. And this is a nationwide problem because what's happening in Chicago is happening all over this country. And now this pandemic, I mean, what's the next variation that we're going to be dealing with? Because it seems like so far, everything that we had to combat this isn't working. There's nothing stopping COVID at all.
It's interesting. I was actually going to save this story for the end of the show as our kind of feel-good story, is kind of but there's quite a contradiction to it. And I think that since you brought up Lollapalooza a moment ago, I'm just going to jump into this story because it completely relates.
Go ahead.
We just heard everything that we got to be worried about, right? Okay,
yep.
But get ready, guys. Chicago's biggest fireworks display ever will be held on lakefront Chicago River for New Year's Eve. What?
Well, people got to go outside to see it, though.
Yeah, in large crowds. Potentially. Yeah. Potentially. I don't know if they're going to shut down Navy Pier. Well, let me read from this story since I pulled this up, because it is, after hearing all of the, the doom and gloom, the sky is falling. And oh, by the way, I would really advise people watch the movie on Netflix, because there is kind of a relation to like how people are responding to this pandemic or in denial about it. Don't Look Up, which I guess was produced as a metaphor for climate change, but you could just as easily relate it as a metaphor for the pandemic and different sides of the fence, people's reaction to it. But so the display will be spread across 1.5 miles and will start at midnight. The city will hold a 1.5 mile long fireworks display along the lakefront and Chicago River for New Year's Eve. The display, which will start at midnight and will be accompanied by music, will be the largest fireworks event in Chicago history, according to a mayor's office news release. There will be 8 firework launch sites along the river and in Lake Michigan near Navy Pier. The display can be viewed outside where there's less risk of COVID-19 spreading. WGN will broadcast the show as well so people can watch from home, according to the mayor's office. Kit, how many years have we gone out on New Year's Eve and literally Lakeshore Drive is shut down? All the cars are parked there like it's a parking lot. Everybody's out of their cars like they're, in a park watching along the lakefront, Navy Pier, the Chicago River. That's what's going to happen. I don't know how they're going to be able, unless they shut down the ramps to Lakeshore Drive, and that very well might happen. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that would really piss off a lot of people also. And I don't want to be Mr. Turd in the punch bowl here. I want to see the fireworks too, but given what we just saw, what we just read and heard of the numbers going up, and then hearing about this big display where everyone can go outside and probably gather in crowds, I'm like, it's just like, which ways are going to go?
I would say the fireworks can wait until we can actually get this thing dealt with. Unfortunately, if there was ever to be another lockdown, I don't think it can work again, because the sad fact is small business owners lost their businesses. Some are still struggling to still stay afloat. You have homeowners and renters that have to go back to work, because let's face it, no politician here in the city of Chicago has any kind of plan to make sure people still stay in their homes. We have elected leaders that are okay turning a blind eye to people being evicted from their homes and apartments. And all over the south and west side neighborhoods of Chicago, there's gentrification still running amok. You think Lightfoot's going to put a stop to it? No. And through that gentrification, people are going to be evicted. And if people don't want to be evicted, they have to go to work. And so the thing is, this pandemic is a recipe for disasters for this thing to continue to spread, because we don't have lawmakers that are actually looking at the bigger picture. And that is, pay people to stay home. Make sure there's a debt jubilee. Pardon people's debt right now, because we're dealing with an overwhelming power of nature, okay? Pardon the people's debt. Have debt relief.
I bet they would tell you they're out of money. They can't give out any more money to get people to stay home. I pulled up a comment that our friend Art made earlier that I wanted to repeat. The whole country needs to do a lockdown for a full 2 weeks.
It's not going to happen. That can't happen.
And look at this map. Look at this map of the sites. So some of the fireworks viewing sites, offshore Navy Pier, the Sable Hotel on Navy Pier, Aeon Ballroom at Navy Pier. So Navy Pier is going to be occupied, and you know that the crowds and cars and parking lots and everybody are going to be out there. It's like this denial that I just saw in this movie. Don't look up. Nobody's looking up at the sky at the asteroid coming. They're all looking at each other in complete denial, just going about their business, pretending that everything's going to be okay. As you say, Kit, it's madness.
Oh, it is all madness, and it's. I never really didn't think we'd get to the point to where, this virus would still continue to get worse. And the thing is, Chicago is a major metropolitan city. We have 2 large airports that have people go in and out of it. Right now, flights are being delayed. And this is all of a sudden a quick reminder to how the pandemic started off way back in 2020. Again, there was only hints and talks about it in December of 2019 and then early January of 2020. And then what did we see in February and March? Talks of lockdowns, talks of this pandemic even getting worse, spreading all over the place. But here in Chicago, we've talked about how you have school children that are left behind right now. The system has utterly failed them. You have business owners that are struggling to still keep their doors open. You have homeowners and renters that have to go to work, because if they don't, they're going to be evicted. There's no sense of real leadership to help out the Chicagoans in this city. There's no real leadership that we're seeing from Mayor Lightfoot. Mayor Lightfoot was all on board to have everyone enjoy the summer festivities. Mayor Lightfoot was all on board for people to spend their money. But when it comes down to actually helping out the people, where's Mayor Lightfoot? She's there wagging her finger, telling people, stay inside, but at the same time, too, also doing this event. It's hypocrisy, and now it's no wonder why people don't respect any of these orders or any kind of issues that are being given, no matter who the official is directing the order from. So I'm not surprised by this. I really wish that we had leaders that actually cared about working class citizens. Other cities in this country have figured out a way to at least do some kind of temporary UBI or help out working class citizens, but we don't have it from Mayor Lightfoot at all. And yet she has the audacity to maybe throw her hat in the ring for 2023. Good luck, Mayor.
Well, I can tell you where Nancy Pelosi. I'm sorry, not Nancy Pelosi. Something else popped up on me. I can tell you where Mayor Lightfoot is. Sending out emails. Hold on a second. Let me. Oh, damn! I was trying to bring this up onto the other screen. Let me bring this down real quickly. Come on, baby. Let me pull this over. I got this, and I as you know me, kid, I just couldn't help but laugh. Here's where she is. She's fundraising.
Okay. What's the fundraiser for?
She is. Please help Mayor Lightfoot continue to make strides by chipping in before our end of the year fundraising deadline. She's going to run again. Abdicates leadership, but she's out there. Earlier this month, Mayor Lori Lightfoot announced a $1 billion investment in affordable housing, the largest investment in our city's history. So please send her money. It's what it comes down to now. That's what she's back.
But what has she done? That's the thing. What has Mayor Lightfoot done? She has not followed through with any of her campaign promises.
No. And she wouldn't be able to do any of this stuff had it not been for the federal bailout money from COVID, 70% of which last year went to police overtime, as we've endlessly harped upon and didn't go where we're supposed to go.
Yeah, and
speaking of businesses,
I'm
sorry, let me let you finish. I just have the screen up so people know where we're going next.
Right, so Mayor Lightfoot, you ran on this idea of actually working for the citizens. You ran on bringing in reform. What reform has she brought in? All that COVID relief bill, it went in to fill the pockets of course, the political establishment here in this city, corruption, and so much more. Mayor Lightfoot, at this point, to me, is one of the most thin-skinned, uncoordinated politicians we've had in a very long time in this city. And she has the chief seat right there of being mayor of this city.
Yeah.
But yet when it comes down to being critical of her administration, she's quick to yell, quick to silence others. Look for example, how much of a conflict she's had with Jamal Green, for example.
Yeah, well, we
talked when he wanted to, in that interview, for example, you guys brought up the fact when he wanted to have that school open up as a community center to help out, young children who need a place to go for mentorship, jobs programs, all that kind of good stuff. What did the mayor do? She decided to build a fence around the area and put lights on it, even though he's rightfully calling her out. And then when there are, journalists and activists that are questioning her and calling her out for her policies, she's quick to silence them or dismiss them or say that they're disruptors. This city has a lot of questions that need to be answered by Mayor Lightfoot, but yet she's so quick to start deflecting, so quick to anger, and then automatically then start dictating policies on how we should all behave. Mayor Lightfoot, when you have the audacity to tell small business owners that one of the options they can do is buzz in, patrons to their businesses,
yeah, right.
I'm thinking, oh my God, you put those small business owners in a rock and a hard place because now you're telling them they have to select who they can and cannot enter into the store or not, and it's a Pandora's box of absolute disaster, of portions of which if anything's taken out of context, those small business owners could lose anything. They could be boycotted. You're putting these business owners in a bad spot. Then let's look at the homeowners and the renters, who again are still struggling. But let's look at the large corporations that still pay zero in taxes in this city. Where is the mayor? What is her overall plan? But yes, she's going to send out a flyer saying run in 2023.
Yeah, send me money.
Yeah, send me money.
Send her money. Well, yeah, Jamal talked with us last week about how they dicked him around too, and they kind of let him on that they were going to have a meeting about that school property, and they again, it's like Lucy with the football. Yeah. They try to keep him under control. Then finally, when he went to protest at City Hall, the mayor had him arrested. There was no bite to those charges. He walked out of that clearly. I mean, cleanly. There was no. It's just she's. It's all about her ego, Kit. It's all about her ego. And even if Jamal Jamal hasn't made any kind of an announcement about running. I don't know what his plans are. But given the fact he hasn't made any kind of an announcement, or he's really being an advocate for the public, that's still a threat to her and her authority. It's all about her authority and her ego. Here's a young man who's got some good ideas, is advocating for the community, is a person of color. I mean, you know how much Lightfoot likes to run on identity politics. If you disagree with her, it's because you hate women, lesbians, or black ladies. So, here's a young man who's doing everything he can and is part of the city. And, she just, It's got to be her way, and it's got to be all about her. And this, well, we see this a lot in our political leaders, though, these days, kid. That's the problem. It's like the cult of personality, and some of them believe their own hype to the degree where she has no self-awareness at what she's actually helping propagate instead of pull people out of. This business with people buzzing people into their stores, it's like all everybody for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Cops aren't there to help. They're hiring private security firms over in where you reported on this a couple of weeks ago, over in Bucktown, without any kind of oversight or accountability. It's just a free-for-all.
Yeah, and that's Mayor Lightfoot doing that. That's Mayor Lightfoot basically saying to people, hey, you're on your own, and I'm going to continue to do what I need to do, all the while more than happy to try and convince voters that she should deserve a second shot. She's got to be a one-term mayor.
We got to hope that we've got some solid, qualified candidates to run against her. I like Word Deer Entertainment's endorsement, Jake and Elwood, for 2023. Oh, if only.
They'd be on a mission from God.
They're on a mission from God, and they hate Illinois Nazis, too, which would work out really well if they were to run against John Catanzara. Oh, I went there. Anyway, let's get into our next story, which does relate to our first story. And this is regarding the mandate that the mayor put in place that by January 3rd, she wants every restaurant in the city and all public places to require proof of vaccination. This comes to us from Block Club Chicago, Mac Liederman. Some restaurants want more time before Chicago's vaccine proof requirement kicks in. Now, I can kind of understand this because I believe the mayor made the announcement about the vaccination proof mandate a week ago, and this is the week after. So I'm sure that there's got to be a lot of internal planning required to make sure that this works, because January 3rd is right around the corner, next Monday. Some Chicago restaurateurs say Monday is too soon to adjust operations to make sure someone is checking vaccine cards. I don't have any people on staff to do this. A group of about 30 restaurants want Mayor Lori Lightfoot to postpone a requirement for indoor businesses to check patrons' vaccination status as Chicago battles another wave of the coronavirus pandemic. I'm always afraid to say that word, Kit, because even though we're talking about the news, YouTube doesn't consider everybody accredited. They want to slam us because they think we might be spreading misinformation when we're not. So forgive me, everybody, when I stumble over the C word, because it's like, should I say it or do I just roll through it? Lightfoot announced December 21st that Chicago businesses where people participate in indoor leisure activities, including restaurants, bars, gyms, and event venues, will have to verify their customers are fully vaccinated starting on Monday. Members of the Chicago Restaurants Coalition, speaking at a Monday news conference, said 2 weeks' notice during the height of the holiday season is not enough time to prepare. Some said they don't have enough employees to ensure someone is checking the cards, don't have time to train for the policy, or haven't gotten guidance from the city or police on how to deal with customers who refuse to comply. They also said the requirement burdens a struggling industry that cannot afford more expenses without added governmental support. Exactly what my friend Kit just mentioned a moment ago in the other story. In a letter sent to City Hall, group members asked to have until January 15th, and I think that's fair, to meet the requirement, and requested more public dollars for the restaurants. The mayors of Boston and Washington, D.C. also have set January 15th deadlines for restaurants to start checking cards. I don't have any people on staff to do this. It's not something that I had in my budget when trying to figure out how to cover my operating expenses, Mary Kay Tuzzi, owner of Twin Acres in Old Town Triangle, said at a news conference. I think the restaurants have been in the crosshairs this entire pandemic. The requirement comes as Chicago, Illinois record a sharp uptick in C-19 cases, hospitalizations, and deaths. Local officials expect those numbers to worsen after the holidays. The majority of the severe cases and deaths have been in people who are not fully vaccinated, officials have said. When asked last week why the city is waiting until Monday for the vaccine proof requirement to start, Lightfoot said officials wanted to give restaurants time to comply. The city's business department has also held webinars to provide guidance on the requirement to affected businesses. Everyone 5 and older. You know how many people are against their kids getting vaccinated? Everyone 5 and older must show proof of full vaccination at eligible businesses and establishments. People 16 and older will also have to provide an ID that matches their vaccination record. Besides restaurants, bars, gyms, and venues, vaccine cards also must be checked at coffee shops, food courts, dining areas of grocery stores, movie theaters, sports arenas, bowling alleys, and several other places. Lightfoot did not give a timeline for how long the requirements will be in place. I would imagine after New Year's Eve and all the crowds are in the streets, mulling with each other to watch the fireworks along Lakeshore Drive, we'd be looking at maybe at least another month. Sorry, editorializing. City business investigators will check to make sure signs are posted and that businesses have a plan for what employees are supposed to do and are following it. I think we're not going to have any difficulty enforcing it, Lightfoot said. Frankly, a lot of our restaurants and other venues are asking us to do this. I think this will give comfort not only to the patrons, business owners, but also to employees. The city has supported local businesses navigating COVID-19 with over $115 million in aid since the start of the pandemic, said Mayor's Office spokesperson Alejandra Flores-Reboller. Throughout this pandemic, businesses have shown their commitment to the health and safety of their employees and patrons by strictly following public health guidelines, Reboller said. Businesses have stepped up in the past to keep our city safe and implement the necessary measures to protect the health and well-being of our residents. Before I go on, Kit, any thoughts you want to share before you might lose a train of thought?
No, it's just, once again, I feel like repeating myself all over again. What is the overall plan from this mayor? What is the overall plan to make sure that Chicago students are not left behind? What is the
we're going to go
overall
into that in the next story.
What is the overall plan to make sure that our senior citizens are going to be safe? What's the overall plan to make sure that the homelessness crisis doesn't continue to get worse? Because last I checked, looking out here in this city, and even going to our new studio, I'm seeing more people on the streets. I'm seeing businesses being shut down. I'm seeing evictions happening. There's nothing being done to protect the people of Chicago. And there are good people in this city, and yet we have politicians that are more than happy to turn a blind eye to this. And yet when she is challenged, take, for example, when Alderman Brian Sinker Lopez of the 25th Ward, who represents Pilsen, was just being critical of her and just calling out what's our overall plan. She has the audacity to start smearing him and besmirching his character. So we got to look at new leadership. We need new leadership to sit in that office, and it cannot be Mayor Lightfoot because we're getting more of the damn same.
Got a lot of good comments in the live chat. Arturo Medina, Lightfoot is going to screw over small restaurant businesses for the sake of emptying prime locations for bigger restaurant investments to open in those soon-to-be vacant locations. That's a good point. Aspen Fallen asks, what the hell are they going to mandate next? This is only burdening the remaining small businesses. War Deer, the ones who don't check need the money, and the ones that do check are usually more pricey joints just covering their arses.
Yeah.
Interesting point here from Aspen Fallen. They're acting like this is checking licenses for drinking age, but it's way more invasive.
Exactly.
We have someone else standing by here, and a guest that was going to come in later, but I'd like to bring him in earlier. Mr. Ed Heller, do you have any thoughts?
Hello, everybody.
Welcome.
Yeah, I actually do have thoughts on this. I mean, aside from what you think of what the jab is going to do for you, we know that that checking your status at like a restaurant or a place in order to get you access to get in is not going to guarantee that you're not going to spread or possibly be contagious. So it would have made more sense if people were required to show like a negative test.
Yeah.
In my opinion. And we know that none of the governments, local or national, felt that it was a good idea to make sure that everybody had tests, and they very much could have. They could have done this more than a year ago. They could have stepped up production. They could have sent out boxes of tests to everybody. If they really cared about stopping the spread, that's what they would have done. This feels like it's just some type of symbolic thing that's just going to set up like barriers based on privilege.
She's got to do it, Ed. It's got to look like she's doing something because she sent out that email to everybody saying, "I'm doing all this stuff. Send me money. I'm rerunning for election." Send money before the end of the year for our fundraiser. I'm telling everybody, go see this movie on Netflix. Don't look up. It's like the sentiment is exactly the same. It's all about the government wanting to control the optics, appearing like they care about a dire disaster, an iceberg that's coming, while they really don't. They're just worried about how it looks to everybody until it goes completely out of control. And that's what we've been seeing for the past 2 years now, with both sides of the aisle handling this public health crisis. Agreed. Well, let's go into our next story, because Kit, you did bring up the schools, and there is another side to this coverage regarding how the mayor has and the public schools have mandated how they're going to help control or stave off the pandemic in our public schools. So, at least with University of Chicago, they're extending their winter break. For most students, due to COVID surge, will go virtual for 2 weeks. I don't think that's a bad idea. I mean, they've been able to do virtual classes in the past. I think that, as I always say, man, whatever side you fall on with your beliefs regarding this public health crisis, what's so hard about being safer than sorry? So this comes to us from Maxwell Evans at Block Club Chicago. The university's winter quarter will now start January 10th for most students and staff, while officials plan a return to in-person classes January 24th. The University of Chicago will delay the start of its winter quarter by 1 week. Just said that. They always repeat the headline in the first paragraph of the story. Most university departments will begin virtual classes January 10th and are expected to return in person January 24th. Although we are taking these temporary measures as a precaution, the university greatly values in-person instruction, and we are committed to returning to it as soon as conditions allow, Lee and Callow-Wright said. And that's Provost K.E. Lee and Executive Vice President Katie Callow-Wright. The winter quarter will end March 19th. Spring break begins the week of March 21st, and spring quarter for most departments will start March 28th. Several departments will follow different schedules for the upcoming months, officials said. Medical students may have special requirements, particularly for their clinical rotations, that could differ from the calendar changes. The Booth School of Business's Executive Masters of Business Administration program will hold virtual classes January 7th, 8th, 21st, and 22nd. The law school will begin remote classes Monday, and spring classes will begin March 21st to follow accreditation guidelines. Now, look, this is specific to the University of Chicago, but I think that the precautions that they're putting in place in reporting the story wouldn't be that difficult to implement, maybe in Chicago public schools and other universities throughout the city. Because Illinois is facing its highest surge of cases at any point in the coronavirus pandemic, public officials have urged residents to get fully vaccinated, get a booster shot, wear masks, and get tested. Infections are expected to peak in early to mid-January, putting increased stress on the university's medical system, and not just theirs, every university medical system. Contract tracing program, staffing, and other university functions, Lee and Callow-Wright said. They are predicting the changes should allow us to get past the peak of Omicron infections, help reduce case counts in the on-campus populations, especially in residence halls, conserve medical resources in our community, and reduce disruptions to instruction. University students and employees who are eligible for a vaccine booster shot must get one for the upcoming quarter, officials announced last week.
Wow.
And they must submit the proof of their booster shot or receive an exemption before classes are set to return in person January 24th. While employees must prove they received their third dose before January 31st. I haven't gotten boosted, but I've also been homebound since I've been recovering from my shoulder surgery and can't leave the house. I am going to get boosted as soon as I can get down the stairs easily and be more mobile. But very interesting. This is going to cause, I'm sure this is going to cause quite a stir with anti-vaxxers, because if they're requiring proof of the booster shot to return to classes, I think it's going to get political again.
Well, yeah, for sure it will, because they haven't even announced that boosters are federally mandated yet. So when you have schools doing it ahead of that, that's going to create a whole mess of people, not just arguing about their own personal medical privacy, but just the fact that they seem to be jumping the gun on this.
Yeah. Shine the light in the live chat. I marvel at the assumption that our corrupt government officials and bought-off media are telling us truths regarding their creative data regarding cases. Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not one to believe everything that comes from our corrupt government officials shine the light, but I do believe a lot of the data coming out of hospitals is very, very alarming as far as the rise in cases and the fact that they're running out of resources to treat these, what do they call them, breakthrough cases with Omicron affecting more people.
All right, so here's the thing. On the one hand, I agree with what the University of Chicago is doing, extending the winter break, and also prepping its students that, hey, we're going to go back to virtual. But here's something else I want to talk about again, too. You know, on the Thursday show, when Lainey is hosting Heartlands Media, we do talk about, you know, how our school system all across the country, especially during the pandemic, how a lot of these kids are basically held back. And there's, like, right now, a lot of psychological issues that a lot of these young people are dealing with. There's a lot of stress that they have to deal with. And there's also the emotional tally of not being amongst their peers anymore. Yeah. And now here's the thing. Now that it looks like how 2020 started off is being repeated again through 2021 during its final days. And it's just, I'm concerned of what this means for a lot of these schools, especially the public schools on the South and West Side areas, because we've covered at Heartlands Media that when a school is shut down, that is like the death blow to a community. That's how a lot of these neighborhoods on the South Side and West Side have been gentrified by the schools being shut down. Under Mayor Rahm Emanuel's watch, 54 Chicago public schools were shut down, along with half of the mental health facilities in the city. These schools right now are important, and the thing is what are some of the long-term damages as we continue on? Like, how bad will this get for at least the students here in Chicago? Because now we are drastically setting them back, and we have lawmakers that have no idea how to get our students, our young people, up to par.
Yeah, no, I can't disagree. You're absolutely right. I mean, I heard this from, one of the concerns my sister had at the beginning of this pandemic was how her kids, my nephews, would be affected by this, and thankfully they're managing. But you're absolutely right to have them separated. And not around their friends does extract a mental toll, because it's such a completely different way of living for young people today. It's unprecedented for them to get used to.
Yeah, agreed.
Interesting story in regards to all of these closures. COVID-19 cancels the rest of Goodman's run of Christmas Carol. That's how bad it is.
Oh my goodness.
This came from Patch, and this was voluntary. Goodman Theater's in-person A Christmas Carol shows have been canceled for the rest of the run. Refund stream performances offered. In-person performances of A Christmas Carol have been scrapped for the rest of its run at the Goodman. It was scheduled to run through this Friday, December 31st, after learning of a C-19 exposure in our production company. And I've heard this in a lot of live performance venues across the city. Also, I remember reading something through the Southport corridor by the Music Box Theater. After learning of a C-19 exposure in our production company, it was necessary to suspend performances to allow time for testing, isolation protocols. The safety of our audiences, artists, and staff remains our top priority, and we appreciate your patience and understanding that we must proceed with an abundance of caution, according to a statement on the theater company's website. Good on them for playing it better safe than sorry. But again, this all had to do with the rush to everything's back to normal now. You know, at the end of the summer, let's run out and do everything. And ticket holders for the canceled performances have until January 7th to receive a refund, convert the cost of the tickets to a Goodman credit, or make a tax-deductible contribution, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I just wanted to note that in this particular story, it was related to, an example of not only other restaurants dealing with all this now, but live performance venues as well.
Yeah. All right. Well, here's what's going to get hit hard. A lot of the entertainments, especially some of these small independent theaters, a lot of these other theaters that have been struggling, during the early parts of 2020, especially the lockdowns, we covered how a lot of small restaurants and other entertainment venues, some of them had to permanently shut their doors. And some of these areas are like well-known, predominant Chicago areas. Some areas places of entertainment are still around. But is this just still the beginning of the end for a lot of people? Because I think for the most part, there was this mindset, especially early on, that somehow maybe we walked out of this pandemic. We're still in it, and precaution is key. And if this, we've been dealing with so many different variations of the COVID-19. I am concerned that we haven't seen its deadliest variation yet. And with the amount of people that are getting sick, what are some of the long-term consequences for this?
I have, a proposed solution, as we like to say. We don't like bitching about the news all the time. We hope we have solutions to present. Now, this might be a controversial solution. It came to me, it was shared with me by Kathy Powers, who was one of our guests last week. Kathy is a member of the People's COVID-19 Reaction group here in Chicago. I'm sorry, I may have gotten their name wrong. People's Response to COVID-19 group. And she shared an editorial with me from Dr. Howard Ehrman, who also was a guest on the show when we did a follow-up last July to our participation in the March for Medicare for All. So I want to read the editorial that Dr. Ehrman is proposing. Again, I know a lot of people aren't going to agree with this. I'm not saying I agree with it either. I'm just throwing it out there because I think that it is worthwhile to share and consider. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with some of these proposals, and I don't know that I'm on board with all of them either, but here we go. Once again, Chicago's Mayor Lori Lightfoot and Health Commissioner Arwady have failed to adequately protect the city's frontline workers, the majority of whom are African American and Latino, by not including them in Tuesday's executive order proof of vaccination in public places effective January 3rd, 2022. This despite the fact that more than 1 million Chicagoans have no COVID vaccine. The city had 5,216 new COVID cases today, and this is dated yesterday. The highest daily total ever, almost 7 times the red highest transmission category. Both ICU and non-ICU hospital beds are the most filled since January of 2021, and hospitalization and death rates of the unvaccinated are 3 to 5 times higher than among the vaccinated. And let's keep in mind, guys, Dr. Ehrman is a practicing physician. He's not making this shit up. This is data that's coming from what he's seeing in the field. Unlike New York City's vaccination requirements announced December 6th by Mayor de Blasio, Chicago and Cook County are not requiring any vaccine mandate for private sector workers, endangering the lives of tens of thousands of indoor employees. New York City is implementing the first in-the-nation vaccine mandate for private sector workers. The mandate, which will take effect on December 27th, will apply to roughly 184,000 businesses. This follows New York City vaccination mandates for city employees, childcare providers, and non-public school employees. 94% of the city workforce is vaccinated. New York City will not give a single inch in the fight against COVID-19. Vaccination is the way out of this pandemic. Maybe, maybe not. And these are bold, first-in-the-nation measures to encourage New Yorkers to keep themselves and their communities safe, said Mayor Bill de Blasio. Mayor Lightfoot and Cook County Board President Tony Preckwinkle need to follow New York City's public health best practices by both immediately sending vaccine teams into workplaces and extend the vaccine mandate to include all public and private sector workers. Now we know how politics are going to enter into that. In addition, the Chicago rule has 2 important exemptions from vaccine requirements it should abolish that New York City does not, each of which will increase transmission of COVID Omicron. An individual 18 years of age or younger who enters a covered location to participate in an activity organized by a school or after-school program offered by any pre-kindergarten through grade 12 public or non-public school, and an individual who enters for the purpose of voting in a municipal, state, or federal election or pursuant to law, assisting or accompanying a voter observing such election. Both the Chicago private worker vaccine exemptions and the 2 above exemptions are consistent with Lightfoot and Arwady's gutting of the public worker mandate on October 7th of 2021 when they changed the mandate to a vaccine or test option. Each of these have endangered thousands of Chicago workers and residents getting COVID infected. Instead, a year ago, when vaccine first became available, they should have sent the Chicago Department of Public Health staff to vaccinate workers in both public and private workplaces, as Florence Kelly, the Hull House workers' rights and anti-child labor crusader, forced the city and employees to do in 1894 during a smallpox pandemic. Now, I'm going to take a pause for a moment here because this is a controversial proposal and editorial, because as we know, our Chicago police union is fighting against mandated vaccinations, as have several other public worker unions. I guess the fact that politics enters into this is always mind-boggling to me, because this shouldn't be about politics. And we know that the vaccinations don't protect everyone from the viruses, but they do add a layer of protection and at least boosting your immunity to hopefully prevent getting sicker. What do you guys think before I continue with this proposal here? Because I think that there's a lot to unwrap here for discussion.
Edward, why don't you go first?
Oh, thanks, Kit. Yeah, as you said, they could provide a layer of protection, but it's your personal medical decision.
Let me ask
you, in my opinion,
if you're working for someone though, and it's part of the job requirement, if you're a public worker, okay, you do have the right to quit your job if you don't want to. I mean, there are other rules on the job people have to follow with public health. Washing your hands if you work in a restaurant anyway. There are a lot of mandates in place that workers, whether it's public or in private businesses, are required to follow for health reasons. So while I get what you're saying, I'm just playing devil's advocate here. Why should it be any different if you want to keep your job and government's or your employer or the city is requiring you to do this, and you have the choice of not doing it and going to work somewhere else? And I'm not advocating for it. I'm just playing devil's advocate here. I think that's the other side of the argument that you're going to find some people might throw out there.
Well, it's kind of difficult to answer, because while I don't agree with the political motivations against jabs, I understand why people would not want to be mandated to deal with their own personal health, especially in a situation like this where we know that while it may protect you, it's not going to stop you from potentially passing it on to someone else,
right? Unless
YouTube says I have to say that it does. And this is a situation where if everyone in authority has decided that the only way out of this is to get jabbed, when we know that there are a whole bunch of preventative things that could have and should have been done prior to having that as an available option. It makes it difficult for us to even trust that decision that they're making on our behalf is the right one for everybody.
I think you make a very good point there. I mean, again, just playing devil's advocate, trying to cover all sides of the argument, but I think you make some very good points. Kit.
So I think at this point, when it comes down towards the requirements of the vaccine and workers and everything else, I'm afraid to say this, but I think the ink is already dry in regards towards people's opinions and what they will and will not do. And I mentioned this on Hardlands Media earlier today. When this whole thing started, we had a corporate media and a two-party political system that was horribly ill-prepared for any situation like this. And throughout this entire time, the people were left asking more and more questions. And we had the establishment and the media give us different answers. No one was ever clear and coherent. And what we're seeing now, especially in this point in time where we're seeing people who refuse to take the vaccine, or people who are skeptical of certain things, or whether you got people taking the vaccine, this is everyone's individual choice at this point. And I can't tell people how they want to live or what they should do at this point. I will just say this. No matter what your point of view is, or who you're going to vote for, or what generation you're part of, please be safe. Because we're not walking out of this. There's no easy solution by the end of this month.
No.
And there's no easy solution in 2022. The only way we're going to get out of this is by working together. And I hope that there will be at least something left to rebuild, because so far the way things are going, the way the economy is going, the way our system is constantly crumbling at just right between the center. Good luck, everyone.
Yeah, I've stopped arguing with people about it myself, kid, and I don't want to sound cold about it, but my perspective is, look, you want to take a chance and not get vaccinated to up your immunity and protect yourself, God be with you. And I say that as an agnostic. It's their choice, right? But the concern for me though is that even though the vaccination is not going to fully protect them from it, if it does boost their immunity a little bit to maybe not spread it to other people. I mean, I mean, the science has just been all over the place with what we're hearing all the time. Let me finish what Dr. Ehrman proposed here, just to give fair time to the rest of his editorial. Time and time again, Arwady and Lightfoot have said the city's COVID policies, rules, and regulations are fine unless the situation gets worse. That is not public health, whose goal is to prevent disease in schools, workplaces, and in our neighborhoods. Public officials are supposed to act to save lives. Before the COVID pandemic gets worse, not wait until more people get infected and die before acting. The same is true for our Chicago public schools. Chief Martinez, who has refused to both test students and staff weekly. I didn't know that they're not testing students and staff weekly. That's crazy. I don't think that testing the kids and staff weekly is that out of line.
Honestly, what they should have been doing from day one, and not just students, but everybody should have been tested daily.
Yeah.
To make sure that they know where the things are spreading and where and who needs to lock down and for how long. And if they had done that at the beginning, we wouldn't be where we are today.
You're true. Mm-hmm. And to offer COVID vaccines in the schools each student goes to, instead of forcing African American and Latino working class families to take time off from work to take their here's his argument. He's right. African American and Latino working class families are being forced to take time off from work to take their children to a clinic or pharmacy. The schools are equipped to do this. They could be equipped to do this, but they're not. Giving CPS families home test kits instead of testing students in their schools weekly is another harsh burden on families who are struggling to survive. Finally, Illinois, Chicago, and Cook County need to immediately change the definition of fully vaccinated to include boosters and transmit clear multilingual messages to everyone that boosters are more important than ever to prevent serious illness, hospitalizations, and death now that Omicron is dominant. Governor Pritzker, Cook County Board President Tony Preckwinkle, and Mayor Lightfoot must follow the example of Connecticut Governor Ned Lamont and New Mexico Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham, who since November have defined fully vaccinated to include boosters. It would be another major mistake to wait for the CDC to change the definition of fully vaccinated to include booster shots. The CDC's definitions, rules, and guidelines are defining fully vaccinated and the CDC's definitions, rules, and guidelines are defining quote-unquote fully vaccinated, and most other public health measures are not legally binding on any local and state health departments in the U.S. The city of Chicago, county of Cook, and all other Illinois local health departments and the state can set better, safer rules than the CDC. None of us are safe until all of us are safe. Now, and again, this comes from Dr. Howard Ehrman. I do have a lot of respect for this gentleman. He was on the show, and this isn't political. This is his perspective as a medical professional that we can say knows what's going on. So I think it was worthwhile to add to the conversation here as we're looking at all the new safety precautions being implemented and introduced.
I would just add that even though it may not be intended to be political, that a lot of doctors are getting their information from the CDC and other places that may or may not have been changing their story like every couple weeks.
Yeah.
And maybe they don't have all the information they need. We have seen firsthand that information is being suppressed online, as far as even just doctors being able to talk about this situation and have ideas or be able to debate on what treatment works and what doesn't. We are dealing with a situation where it's quite clear that establishment is trying to make us all think a certain way. And so now we are not only battling with the information we're given, but we're battling with making a decision on who do we trust in authority these days, if any of them.
Peter brings up a good point here that I think a lot of us have also considered. The vax is firstly about enriching big pharmaceutical companies. When has the government and corporations shown any care for lives? 900,000 people in the U.S. have died. And when we saw how, I think, how well the vaccination program operated, whenever I hear people complaining about, single payer healthcare, who's going to pay for it, how's it going to operate, it's like we saw how a single payer system would operate when they implemented the vaccinations. You walk in, you give them your social security number, you get vaxxed, you're out. That's how a single payer system works. That's how it should work beyond vaccination treatments for COVID, to keep people safeguarded, taking care of people's health all the time, year round.
Yeah, and the other thing about that is that if everybody had a good basic standard of care, of health care, then I think there would be a little bit less resistance to people trying to get early treatment for things.
Sure.
So you would have, I mean, especially if they knew that they had, a medical system in their country that would support them if they had anything go wrong. This, I mean, the fact, that we don't have anything like that in this country is ridiculous. We could have had the president sign off on, even though it wouldn't have been that improved Medicare for all, that the one that Sanders pushed during his campaign, we would have at least all had access to a basic level of care through the standard Medicare system, and they can still do that right now through, I believe it's Section 1881A of the Social Security Act. They did this in Libby, Montana.
Executive orders with the stroke of a pen is
Stroke
what
of a
Sleepy
pen.
Joe could do, and he's just not. He's not going to do it because he's owned by his donors. He's owned by the corporate donors to the neoliberal Democratic Party that doesn't give a shit.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't give any more of a shit than the Republicans do.
And then just to follow up on the point where people are talking about hospital beds being taken up. Okay, you knew that was coming. Make more hospital beds available. Expand your hospitals. I know at least on the first wave in Illinois, J.B. Pritzker had set up what was it, the
McCormick Place. I remember that. It was quite scary. To see McCormick Place full of beds was like doomsday. It's like, here it comes.
Now
reopen it that way,
and they can do it again.
Have them available.
Yep.
We knew Omicron was happening. We don't know how deadly it is compared to Delta. It sounds like it's not as bad as far as people being hospitalized by it. But we'll see what happens as the days go on.
Right, and the thing is, we have to remember, especially if we look back at the whole situation with McCormick Place, that should have been a huge wake-up call for a lot of people. But, the fact that was even considered, and for those who don't know, again, McCormick Place is this huge, expo center here in the city. That would have been, I mean, again, that was a frightening concept to even think. And who knows where we're going to be going in the future. But, I mean, if that's ever brought up again, and if it ever follows through, there's going to be a lot of people in that building if we're ever into that kind of worst-case scenario,
I can't even imagine. I just hope. All we can do is hope. So as we kind of come to the end of our show here, I know it seems like it's all pandemic all the time, but there was something else everybody here in town was losing their shit about in the past 24 hours, and I want Ed to.
Oh, hang on a second. I gotta go check and see if my egg rolls are ready. I'll see you guys in a minute.
Oh, okay. I didn't know he was cooking. Well, let's go to the live chat really quickly. Well, before Ed returns. Let's see here. Coming from All for Nothing 388. The fact that testing isn't free, universal, and convenient at this point is almost as unbelievable as this whole mess to begin with. Now, there's a free testing clinic in my neighborhood, though. All for Nothing. I'm assuming that the testing clinics that I'm seeing on street corners that have popped up all over the city are free, and I haven't gone to one myself lately because I haven't had a need to. But I thought that all the testing clinics are free. So, but you're right. They should all be free if they're not. Shine the light. Go get your 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th because they plan on keeping the boosters coming. More of the boogeyman to keep you jumping. Yes, sir, Master Government. Darrow West Herb. We have plenty of things in our country that help beat COVID-19. For example, Epsom salt baths. It's a detoxifier and purifier of air in the body. Put a glass of water and salt trap COVID. Well, I'm not going to dismiss what you're saying. I'm not a healthcare professional to be able to endorse that. I would suggest people do their own reading, but thank you for sharing that. If that is something that could potentially help people, not trying to prove you wrong. Just have to be careful here on YouTube. Appreciate your contribution. TrueDemocracyNow.org. If we continue to let politicians make all of our political decisions for us, we will have no control over them. Learn how to make political decisions for politicians. Yes, agreed. COVID vaccines would still be needed if we had single-payer health care, from Dirtbag Leftist. Nice to see you back, Dirtbag.
Well, actually, I got some breaking news to tell you right now.
Please share.
Harry Reid has passed away.
Oh, my goodness.
Yep.
Wow. One of the key proponents of getting to the bottom of UFOs here in the United States. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. He's been retired now for how many years now?
For a while. So he was Senate Majority Leader from 2007 to 2015. He did step down, and of course, Chucky Boy Schumer took his spot. Yeah. But Harry M. Reid. He's gone.
Did you hear,
guys? I just saw Harry Reid walk by. He still doesn't want to get rid of the filibuster.
Oh, okay.
Crazy.
That was good.
That was a very, very, very good transition. Thank you.
You guys know that John Madden just walked in the door too. He was talking about how he wished he could have another turducken, and he wishes that he got more profits from those video games they kept naming after him.
Oh, well.
So rest in peace, John Madden.
Harry had a rough one.
And also Harry Reid, I guess.
That's a tough illness. That's not one I've known anybody to be able to recover from. Thanks for sharing the details, Dana.
Thank you, Dana. Do appreciate it.
Yep. So we might disagree with some of our politicians and elected leaders, but Darrow East Herb shares prayers up and out to his family. R.I.P. Mr. Reid. Well,
agreed. Agreed 100%. So while we do wrap things up, one thing I do want to bring up is I'm kind of hearing myself echoing. I don't know who's that. Okay. But yeah, so while we are wrapping things up, it did snow here in Chicago just for a little bit. So it took an old man winter a while to get here, but we're going to be due for a bitter storm. I actually had to drive through that nightmare, but I wish everyone a safe time traveling through the snowy environment. That is the Chicago blizzard that hit us.
Yeah,
you know what I call that?
Yeah.
I call it Shy Please Mageddon 2021.
This is what everybody
Sponsored by Flavored Improving Mugs.
Of course. This is what everyone was losing their shit about. Like, we've never seen snow or sleet in the city before. I understand, we got to be ready for the snowstorms. We got to have the streets salted. But man, oh man, what's his name over at WGN? Tommy Skilling?
Yeah.
These storms probably work for him better than Viagra for other people. Because when they happen, man, it's just like he's out there very, very excited to report on it. And, as what happened today, it wasn't that bad, but they certainly made it out to be.
They get super excited for any kind of precipitation, but when the snow finally comes, oh boy, they just go crazy.
Yeah, especially Tommy. All right, guys. Well, listen, it's been a great broadcast. I'm glad that. How were your Christmases? Let's shift into some personal before we jump out of here. How's everybody doing? Have a good time?
I had a great time, especially for our Christmas special. I had a great time with my relatives who did come here to visit. It wasn't a big old party, but still got some people coming in for New Year's, so the house is still gonna be somewhat little packed, not too much though. But I had a great time, and I made some awesome honey baked ham. I got the ham bone now.
You got the ham.
Rest in peace, Uncle Bernie.
What was Bernie's quote when you were dealing with that phone solicitor? I forgot it. It's been a while.
Wait. What
ham?
Because he wanted to get ham. What he always say is like, no, you got to get all the ham, and I need the ham now.
He needs the ham.
Yeah, and whoever this scammer was like, no, sir, I want this. Like, no, I want the ordered ham. Get the ham now.
Ham. Dirtbag leftist shares they got about 4 to 5 feet. Look, I always wish we had a white Christmas. We didn't have one this year, but if we have something by New Year's, it'd be nice. Just adds to the season.
We got what was it, like 1 to 2 inches today, and I think it's like already melted.
That's what she said.
Yes, it is what she said. Oh, and I had a wonderful Christmas too. Me and Bessie, we hung out in the barn. Well, it was a reconstructed barn because you guys all know what that one Nick guy did.
You and Missy, you and Bessie together, that might be too much information.
But, Jolly St. Nick, he actually turned out not to be such a bad guy when he ain't on a bender in October.
There we go.
He drops off the peppermint flavored hay for Bessie like every Christmas, and then he gives me some well, I don't know what the heck he gives me, because usually I'm like asleep by then, passed out from drinking too much chocolate milk.
Okay. All right, Jerry. We should be wrapping things up.
Yeah, we'll wrap things up here. So listen, everybody, I'll be back on Friday. I guess I'm going to do somewhat of a New Year's Eve show. I have no idea yet what I'm doing. I will be joining KRTD Media, I think at 3 o'clock for their all-day New Year's Eve broadcast. I guess I'm going to be sharing time with 2 people you know, Kit. Fiorella Isabel and Nico House, both of whom I've never met or talked with before. But I guess that in the different segments for the KRTD New Year's Eve show, they're going to be, just rapping about different things. And you are also invited. Shane asked me to.
Oh shoot! Yes. So I got to get back to him. He called me during the show, and I'll get back to him tomorrow.
Yeah, get back to him, because maybe you can be in the block that I'm in with, because I know Fiorella and Nico House. I don't know them, so maybe the 4 of us could be on it. But yeah, check in with Shane. He wants to have you join in. So yeah, everybody, we'll see what there is to report on before Friday. But in the meantime, I wish you all a safe week. Watch out for each other. Be vigilant. Take care of each other. And always remember, if it's happening on the street, you'll hear about it here.
Hold on, Jerry. Before you do you
interrupted my outro.
We got to answer a really important question here from Aspen Fallen. Aspen Fallen asks, what is Pegleg's take on anchovies pizza? And I got to tell you, anchovies have no business on a pizza in Chicago. What you do in your city is your business.
I was actually annoyed that you interrupted my outro, but given that I completely agree with you, you're forgiven.
All right, wrap it up, though.
I didn't mean to step on your outro.
All right. Remember, everybody, if it's happening on the streets, you'll hear about it here on Chicago Corner. Stay safe, and we will see you on Friday. Take care, everybody.